The Pac-12, how are they going to survive without their two big programs? Hey, if you like this kind of content, how about subscribing to our channel if you haven't done that yet? Do us that solid and take care of that business. Subscribe to the channel, hit the alarm bell, that way you get all of our drops. Also, I'm trying to get to my first 1,000 subscribers, so if you can help along with that, go ahead and do that too. So,
what are we waiting for?
Yo, this is Tribe with Yo Tribe Sports Bag. I'm back at it again today with you, and I'm getting into some more sports. And this time, it isn't boxing. Although the boxing guys have been good to us so far this year, and a lot of talk has been going towards the boxing area, we're going to get into what we planned on when we first started this channel, and that is a sports channel. With NFL football coming along and now college football doing just the same. All-Star weekend is coming up in baseball very soon. So we have a lot of sports to finally get into that are not boxing. So let's get this thing handled right now, because guess what? I know why you're here, and you know why you're here. You saw the thumbnail, and that thumbnail said something like this: USC and UCLA to the Big Ten. That is a huge surprise to a lot of people in this country. That's a huge surprise to people who just watch college sports, not even just football. There's been a lot of changing going on in the college football ranks and the ranks of college sports, period, over the last couple of months. We saw it earlier this year when Texas and Oklahoma decided to leave the Big 12, moving on to the SEC, and they were going to do it in a couple of years. Now, 2024 may be the time they decide to do it, but this year, UCLA, USC, coming from the Pac-12 over to the Big Ten. They used to be big-time rivals. The winner of the Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12 used to play the Big Ten in the Rose Bowl. That was one of the most anticipated games of the year outside of the national championship game. Now, they're friends. They are rivals, but they're in the same conference now. I don't know how they're going to go about doing that, but that's the big-time change we have now in the college sports ranks. A lot of things have been going on as of late. This huge news is just another piece of the puzzle of things that I can expect to change a whole lot more as we move along in the months and probably years into the college sports world. Along with that, you're talking about a lot of money being made because the networks have made themselves just as big a part of the college sports ranks as anyone else. The players, the coaches, the programs themselves, it's all about the money, and the networks are doing just that. Fox and ESPN seem to be the puppet masters of all of this money coming in and all these changes coming about. The survival of the fittest, when the big time teams from the Power 5 conferences are joining forces and they're squeezing out the little guy. But right now, we don't have to talk about squeezing out the little guy. We're talking about this big time news: USC, UCLA going to the Big Ten. What's going to happen with everybody else? Well, with these two teams, first of all, they're the biggest rivals in the conference of the Pac-12, were going to be in 2024. What's going to happen to the Pac-12? What's going to happen now in the Big Ten? How they're going to split this up in terms of keeping those traditional rivalries going, and to a degree, probably letting USC and UCLA keep some of their rivalries from the Pac-12 as they play in the Big Ten. It's just a mess, and it's up to them to figure it out, because right now, in the little bit of time I have, I don't have to figure it out. I just have to bring it to the forefront and kind of sort of give it my spin and make some sense about it. Money, money, money. That's what the game is all about. The more money you can make, the bigger the game is going to be. And these networks have brought the money and the game to the colleges, and that's why we're all playing along right now when it comes down to this. Because look at this, the Pac-12. How are they going to survive without their two big programs? Because with those programs, they made an estimated $42 million, with those teams. Now, without those teams, they're making probably $30 million. That's $12 million less. You know what? That's still big money to the conference. That's a lot of money to the conference. They have to be able to recoup some of that money. And how are they going to do that? Getting new alliances with other teams that don't have the prestige of those two teams, whether it's football or basketball, because with USC, it's about the football. With UCLA, it's about the basketball. Yeah, there's some football every now and then, but it's primarily about the basketball when it comes down to UCLA. Either way, all of that money from all those sports are gone, and they're going to the Big Ten. So the rich are getting richer. Just like the SEC, when they brought in Texas and Oklahoma, the rich are getting richer. That leaves some of these Power 5 conferences, which may no longer be Power 5 when it's all said and done. It may be the Power 3 or the Power 2 for all we know. But as things are going right now, this is turning out to be an interesting mess that we can just dabble into and come up with all types of scenarios, give all types of opinions, and try to get to the bottom of it. That's what I'm trying to do right here. See, the one school out of all of this, even though Oklahoma and Texas are going to the SEC, even though USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten, I think one of the schools that doesn't necessarily hold the cards, but are an intriguing thing to talk about right now is Notre Dame. Notre Dame with their NBC deal. Notre Dame was the plum job. Notre Dame was the biggest school in the country once upon a time. That's no longer the case anymore. Their big, prestigious NBC deal that looked like it was breaking ground years ago is just another deal that a network has. Notre Dame gets $15 million annually from NBC to play or broadcast their home games. They also get between $10 to $11 million every year from the ACC because Notre Dame was able to play the game of, we'll give you our prestige ACC in football, but we want to be able to keep our own money everywhere else. Or in basketball, not football, but in basketball, but we want to keep our money everywhere else. You know, Notre Dame was able to play that when they were the team and everybody loved Notre Dame. Well, not everyone, but you know what I'm talking about. They are the national brand. They've built it over these decades, gone century or whatever. And that's where they were. And they're not there anymore. Back in 2018, the Wall Street Journal talked about the teams that were prestigious. And when I mean prestigious, were the top teams that were making the big money. That's where the prestige comes from these days. Texas is number one. Alabama is number two. And you're talking about the only two teams who were over the $1 billion in value number, Texas and Alabama. Notre Dame was number 5 with over 900 million, but not at $1 billion. So what used to be isn't right now when it comes down to Notre Dame football, but they still play a role in college football because regardless of what they are now, wherever they do go, the revenue is going to go up incrementally just the same if they go to the Big Ten, which I think that's probably perfect for them, considering they're already in Indiana. They're already part of the geography of what's going on over in the Big Ten. Well, doesn't even matter anymore. You have West Coast teams in the Big Ten right now, so it's not even about geography anymore. Your geography professor would fail you right now. In fact, as a third grader, your geography teacher would fail you based on what's going on right now in the college sports ranks with the NCAA, but I digress, of course, and you can see that. See, that NBC deal is something that Notre Dame would like to keep, but with all of this money flying about and all of these contracts expiring for different conferences, it's giving these bigger teams an opportunity to weigh their options and be able to go out there and take the biggest and best offer. I think that had a lot to do with it, especially with the Pac-10, with USC and UCLA. What about Notre Dame? Once again, you know, Notre Dame has to sit around because they can still dabble with the ACC as they have been doing or do something different, but they're going to have to now get into a conference, in my opinion, and in the opinion of others, because the ACC may not be around the way it is right now. As soon as a year or two, or maybe a little bit more, or something in between, you're talking about 3 teams that may leave the ACC and move on and possibly to the SEC, which would be a perfect fit. Those 3 teams, in my opinion, and in the opinions of others that I have seen and read about, Clemson obviously made a name for themselves. They have a nice tradition and history. They've won national championships in the past 10 years. You have Florida State, FSU, yes, and then you have Miami. I mean, Miami's on the ascend, but they still have a rich history. 5 national championships says rich history in the past 40 years. So that does matter. In addition, If you're talking about dollars and you're talking about cents, you're talking about where that money can grow even faster, the television markets. So you're going to need that Miami area television market just as well. So all of this starts to make sense when you're talking about the sheer dollars and cents, but the competition would be just as great. Miami has proven it so far with Mario Cristobal coming on board with the Canes at his alma mater, doing some phenomenal recruiting. And now the landscape of college football has changed, or college sports period, with NIL, which are helping teams become better a whole lot faster than would have been traditionally allowed years ago, in addition to the transfer portal. So we're talking about teams that could get themselves right immediately and fit right in. Get in where you fit in. And if you're in the SEC, do the same for those three teams. So there's a lot out there. I know I started off talking about USC and UCLA, but what more is there to say? There are other teams out there who aren't part of the Power Five that are probably going to fall apart. The ACC, from what I've heard just recently, the ACC is going to try to make a deal with the Pac-12. How is that? Geography, once again, doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. These are just traditional names of conferences now are going to be the reason why these people are even known. Because when you have a California team representing the Midwest, that's not geography anymore. That's tradition, but it's all about the money. And why not? Because that's what they're all here for, to make as much money as possible. And typically, when you put your money in the right places with the right people, you get that competition that everybody's looking for anyway. So you're getting what you're paying for a lot of times. And this is one of those times. Tell me what you think about this show right now. Tell me what you think about what's going on the college landscape. Have the chickens come home to roost for the NCAA after all of these years of their monopoly and their shenanigans and all of the rules and regulations they put in place just to be hypocrites later on? I'm Trav with Yo Trav Sports Back. Until next time.